If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and it's good to be back on the air. As I'm sure most of you realize by now, it's been a few weeks since I've been on the air, and I'll explain that in just a moment, what's been happening here the last couple of weeks, but nothing urgent, but it's actually quite humorous. But anyways, glad you could tune in tonight. Just waiting for one of my panelists to connect on here in just a few moments, but as I said, it's great to be back on the show, Golf Talk Live. It's been a few weeks. And for those of you just tuning into the broadcast, we are live Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Central, or 7 to 9 for those of you on the East Coast. And normally what I would suggest that you do is you can go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, or just type Golf Talk Live up in the search key, and that will take you to the main page, and you can join us live on Thursday night. But for some reason, if you can't join us live, just go to that link, blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, and just scroll down to the on-demand section, and that will host all of the previously aired broadcasts, and you can listen to the recorded version when it's convenient for you. But I want to thank you for those of you tuning in live tonight. Got a great show for you tonight. Had a little bit of a change, may even be a further change yet, depending on whether my other panelist is going to make it here. Scheduled really two guys tonight on the panel discussion for Coach's Corner. Clint Wright, of course, who's been on here many, many times, and also Tony Brooks, another great golf professional. Tony had to back out, had a little bit of a urgent matter that had to deal with, and which he's currently doing so right now, and isn't going to be able to join us tonight. So I'm just waiting for Clint to chime in here, and we'll begin the Coach's Corner discussion with Clint and I tonight, I guess. And then a little bit later on in the show, in the second half, a couple of great PGA guys. Tom Stickney, first time on the show. He's the Director of Operations for the Vidanta Golf Academies in Mexico. And Mr. Chuck Evans, of course, most of you are familiar with him that tune into regularly to the broadcast. He's the Executive Director of Instruction for Medicus Golf Academies, and, of course, the owner of Chuck Evans Golf. They're going to be joining me in the second half together. And we're going to talk about some of the evolution, I guess, if you will, of the golf instruction, where it sort of began and where it's at right now. Lots of great, exciting things happening. And we're going to talk about that when those guys join me in. And we're going to hear a little bit more about Tom's academies there at the Vidanta Golf facilities there in Mexico. Some great resorts down there. We'll get him to chime in a little bit about those, and then we'll give you the website and that, so you can go and check out some of the great opportunities if you want to maybe take a trip either this fall or maybe in the new year. Some great golf down there at those golf academies, and of course some fantastic resorts at the Vidanta resort. So we'll talk about that. But as I said, glad that you're joining me live. Some other ways to get updated, of course, on social media. You can go to facebook.com and you can check out the Golf Talk Live page, which is Golf Talk Live blog, actually. And that is updated up there. Of course, on my personal page, it's always updated every week that I'm on the show. And then, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. CEO, of course, is in capital letters, and that's my Twitter handle. So thank you for all of those that you follow through on Twitter. As I was mentioning a few moments ago, of course, I haven't done a show here, either of the shows, actually, the Tuesday morning show either, for a couple of weeks. Cindy, of course, who most of you know, is my co-host on the Women of Golf show, which airs 9 to 10 a.m. Tuesday mornings. Cindy's been really swamped with a number of things going on, and I've been actually a little under the weather. Earlier in October, very early in October, I went to Las Vegas for a short trip and ended up contracting a virus, which is pretty much wiped me out for the last couple of weeks. So this is really the first week that I've been back on air. So I'm a little bit rusty, so forgive me, and just trying to get back into it. And as I said, I'm just waiting for Clint to, to come on board, and we'll begin the Coach's Corner segment. But let me just, a couple other things I want to mention. Since we're winding down, since we're getting really close to winding down the season for some of you out there, especially up in the northeastern part of the United States, some things to take note. Lots of great indoor facilities around. One of the things I think some of the biggest problems that a lot of golfers out there have is they get into sort of the winter funk, if you will. Not everybody has the opportunities to make it down to Florida where I am, or some of the other sunnier spots here in the southeast. And so they're kind of hibernating, if you will, for the winter. And that's really not conducive to having a good golf game. You've got to be willing to put some time in through the winter months as well. And there's a number of things that you can do. We've talked about many things on the show. Let me just sort of give you a quick overview of some things that you can do while you're hibernating in the winter, if you will. First off, number one, always continue to have some sort of a physical fitness regime. Certainly don't have to hit the weights heavy. Certainly don't recommend that, actually, if you want to play golf, because heavy weights is certainly not going to help your golf game. But certainly some sort of a fitness program. Brett Cohen, most of you know, was a fitness instructor who was on back late September. He has some great fitness programs out there. Lots of other great yoga programs as well that you can get into. I've had some great guests on the show talking about that as well. So there's a lot of great fitness opportunities out there, and you can certainly visit some of those guys. Brett Cohen is one. Visit his website. Catherine Roberts, of course, has been on the show. She has great Golf for Yoga program. And Karen Palacios Jansen also has some great fitness programs. And another gentleman that has been on the show, hasn't been on for a little while, Bob Foreman from up in, I believe, North Carolina, has Carolina Golf Fit. .com, I believe, is his website. So lots of great fitness instructors out there in golf that you can visit their website and or certainly reach out to them, and they can put you in touch with some good programs to do. So that's number one, is you want to have a good fitness program throughout the winter months. If you're in an area that gets laden with some heavy snow, there are some indoor facilities in your area. You just have to check your local listings, maybe get on and Google some golf centers in your area that have some indoor facilities. And if you're working with a great golf professional, golf coach, if you will, a lot of them, of course, have some good indoor facilities, or they may know of one that you can work together and get in some practice time through the winter months. But if you don't have access to that, or maybe you just don't feel like venturing out into the colder temperatures, some things that you can do inside the house. I've said this many times. Some things that I do. I happen to have a full-length mirror in my place, and what I do a lot of times is I certainly don't swing full force with the golf clubs, but I'll take some of my shorter irons particularly, and I'll just sort of very slowly go through the mechanics and work on some of the fundamentals. I'll work on my grip. I'll work on my stance and posture, and check my alignment in the mirror. Sometimes I'll even run a bead of tape down just so that I can, down the center of the mirror, just so I can make sure that I'm centered properly. Also, I can get a golf ball and set up to a golf ball and just check the ball position, make sure that's good as well. But the other thing that I like to do is I like to work through the actual full swing. Again, I don't swing per se, because I am indoors, and even though I do have enough height clearance for it, but what I like to do is I will in slow motion just kind of go through all and check the different points to make sure that I'm loading up properly my backswing, make sure my weight's properly shifted onto my right side, and then as I work and transition down through the downswing, make sure that it's starting from my feet first, of course, making sure that they're planted properly and that there's a proper transition into the downswing and then into the follow through. I want to make sure I'm holding my position correctly. So those are things that you can do inside. The other thing is some great stretching. Stretching, I mean, a lot of times, as I said, when you're not out there swinging a golf club for a long time and maybe you don't, as I said, have access to a great golf facility indoors or aren't able to venture here down south, doing some great stretching inside as well keeps those muscles loose and limber, so that when you do get back out and working on your golf game in the springtime, your muscles are in good shape and they're not all tight and tense and sort of locked up from sitting in the lazy boy for 3 or 4 or 5 months, depending on where you are. But if you do have an opportunity to venture into a warmer climate, I strongly urge that you do so. Make sure you pack the sticks, of course. You may want to get involved in a clinic of some sort. Check with some of your local PGA professionals. Many of them venture down here to warmer climates and actually have academies and clinics that they perform here in the southeastern part of the United States and obviously out in California as well. My good friend, Mr. Byron Casper, son of legendary Billy Casper, has a great academy out there under in San Diego area as well. So you might want to check him out if you're going to be out in the California area as well. But lots of great things that you can do, and I strongly suggest that you keep doing that throughout the winter months. And if you get a chance to do some traveling elsewhere, maybe you want to check out a great resort, see what their facilities are like, and maybe even call ahead and see what kind of a program they offer, maybe a winter tune-up, if you will. A lot of times some of the professionals, golf professionals and coaches will have a tune-up, if you will, available for a winter tune-up and get practice on some of the fundamentals and some of the areas that you might be struggling with, so that when you come back and you're ready to transition back into spring and get back into your full golf regimen, you're not sort of starting from ground zero again. So those are some things that you can do. And obviously another thing that goes hand in hand with the fitness end of it is good nutrition. More often than not, I see a lot of golfers out there that end up having some poor eating habits. I'll admit from time to time I snack on some things I probably shouldn't and are not conducive, but I try to, when I go out and play golf, I always try to make sure that I have a good breakfast and that I also pack some snacks that are nutritious, that are going to give me good energy, not hype me up with sugars or carbohydrates that are not going to be good for me. I want to make sure I eat some protein. So I might pack maybe some nutrition bars, that sort of thing, maybe some a small baggie with some nuts in there, like almonds are really, really good. Obviously, I don't want to have them heavy salted or anything like that, but those are some good things that you can take with you, some snacks. I might even, depending on what the temperature's like or what I bring with me, sometimes I have a little cooler bag I bring with me that I can put some ice in there, and I might sit on top of it, on top of the ice, because I don't want it to get frozen, obviously. I might even throw a banana in there sometimes. That's good for you as well. It gives you some good energy, good vitamin D. In bananas. So lots of good things that you can do. Jack Nicklaus, of course, Golf My Way, talked about eating properly, not only at breakfast before you go out to your round, but packing some nutritious snacks along the way as well. As I said, I'm not sure what's happening for this evening here. It looks like Clint may be delayed as well. I have messaged him, and we'll see. Hopefully he'll come on board. It's going to be a long hour here by myself. But anyways, lots of good things that you can do to prepare. And one of the things that I'm looking at doing for next year, just since we've got some time here, obviously I want to continue on with Coach's Corner and have some great success. Everybody that's participated enjoys it. And we're going to be hopefully adding some new people to the mix in the new year as well that haven't been on here before. One of the guys that we had on here has been on a few times that jumped in the mix this year was Brandon Stooksbury from Macon, Georgia. He's been on here. Has been a great asset to the panel, as well as been a phenomenal guest, and enjoy having him on the panel. I look forward to having him join us next year. And Chuck Evans, of course, who's going to be joining me a little bit later on with Tom Stickney. Chuck has been on a panel here or there and has also been a guest on the show. and look forward to catching up with him and seeing what he's been up to for the last little while. I haven't talked to him for a little bit, but looking forward to having him come on the show as well. Again, I apologize for the delay in getting things started here. As I said, I'm not sure what's happened with Clint. I imagine he's probably running late. I know that he's a busy guy, and we'll see. Hopefully, he'll join us here. Otherwise, I guess I'll be managing the Coach's Corner segment myself tonight, which wouldn't be the first time. Some other things that I want to do too, while I've got your attention out there, and again, I apologize for the delay. For those of you in the golf industry, if you're interested in coming on the show and you'd like to be a guest, whether a guest on the Coach's Corner panel, or maybe if you're interested in being a featured guest on the second half of the show, I'm working towards my New Year's schedule right now for 2017. So best way to do it, you can certainly reach out to me in multiple forums. I'm obviously on Facebook, so you can reach out to me at my personal Facebook page. But the best way to reach me and to indicate your willingness to come on the show and share your thoughts and experience is you can reach out to my email address. My email address is ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. That's ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And reach out to me, and you don't necessarily have to be a golf instructor. You can be somebody in the golf industry. Maybe you work at a resort that you want to promote. Maybe you work in a different capacity. Maybe you offer products in the golf industry that you would like to come on and share with my audience. Obviously, I'm broadcasting to a global audience, so it gives you some great exposure. So whatever capacity in the golf industry, maybe you're in the fitness end of it as well. Always glad to have more fitness men and women come on the show and share some of their approaches to how they help players get into shape for the game. And maybe you're a player. Maybe you're somebody that's playing on one of the tours. Doesn't necessarily have to be one of the major tours, PGA or LPGA. We've interviewed, of course, Sydney and I've interviewed on Women of Golf show many Symetra Tour players as well as some LPGA players on the program as well. Some up-and-comers. Some have played for a few years on the tour, and some have just come out here in the last year or so and testing their mettle, if you will, against some of the top ladies in their field. Also, maybe you're on one of the junior tours, web.com, or some of the other local tours out there, and you'd like to come on the show and maybe share your story and your journey. I'd love to have a young player come on here and share some of their thoughts about how it really is, how life is out on tour, and some of the struggles and ups and downs that you're faced with week in, week out. So, again, you can reach out to me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to set that up. I'm going to just take a moment here if I can, and I'm going to very quickly try and reach out to Clint one more time and just see. Obviously, appears to be a problem that he may be running into. So I'm just going to very quickly, if you bear with me here, and just send him a quick message via email. And we'll see if there's a delay in him coming on tonight, if there's going to be a further delay, rather, on him coming out. But as I said, I got two great guests coming on the show, and I'm looking forward to talking to them and having them share some of the really differences that have been changing in the golf industry over the years. Golf instruction today, as opposed to 20, 30 years ago, is certainly much different, much more technology, lots of swing theories that have come out, if you will, and over the years. Some subscribe specifically to different theories. Some sort of have a mixed bag, if you will, of using and applying different theories. And some, of course, just sort of have their own approach on how they teach. So it really doesn't matter. What matters, I think, is the receptiveness, number one, of the student to learning new things, and the willingness to engage with the instructor. One of the things, if I was to have a couple of criticisms, one of them would be, for students that is they're not sometimes engaging enough. I think through maybe they're a little intimidated sometimes, especially working for the first time with a teacher professional or coach, a lot of times they're very, very intimidated and not always eager to sort of jump in there and a little apprehensive to ask questions. What I always like to do is this. I think this is probably one of the best pieces of advice I think you'll ever get for a beginning golfer that has never taken lessons before. A lot of times, as I said, many players, if you will, are very nervous and very apprehensive once they get sort of face to face with the instructor, and they're not sure what to ask. So what I always recommend to people after we've had our sort of initial meeting and sort of set things up and gotten a game plan together, I always encourage them to go home away from the golf course and think about some of the things that are important to them, some things that they would like to accomplish, maybe some goals that they would like, and we can certainly smooth them out as time goes on as we work together and refine and that sort of thing. But I think sometimes when you're away from the moment, it's easier to be able to formulate those questions in your mind and jot them down, write them down, on a piece of paper, or if you're using a cell phone or a tablet or something like that, you can type them into your tablet in your list, and just sort of some quick bullet points of things that you want to talk about, maybe questions that you want to make sure that you ask when you come to your to the lesson tee. And I think that the more prepared that you are coming to a lesson, the better experience that you're going to have. More often than not, as I said, you get a lot of, especially younger golfers or first-time golfers that come out to the lesson tee, more often than not don't know what to ask, and they're very, very apprehensive, very quiet, and it isn't until they've been with you a few times that they sort of warm up. And I think you really need to get some of these things sort of off your chest right from the get-go, because a lot of times if we're not understanding exactly where you're coming from, it makes it hard for us to be able to sort of pick your brains, if you will, if we don't know what's inside there. So the more help that you can give us to better understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish, we can certainly see visually once we diagnose some of the issues that you may be dealing with, but that may be not all that you want worked on. Maybe there's certain areas of your game that you really want to focus on, and you want to make sure that's made clear right up front. Those of you that maybe have been playing for a little while, it's good sometimes just to jot those questions down, especially, again, for those of you that are going to be hibernating here in a few months. Come spring, you might have some things and thoughts right now of what you want to accomplish next year, but through the fog of Christmas and everything else going on into spring, by that time rolls around, you've kind of lost your train of thought. So it might be a good idea to jot some of those points down now. And if you're currently working with somebody, whether it be a teacher professional or a golf coach, it might be good to sort of talk about those things at the end of the season this year and say, these are some of the things that I want us to look into next year when I come back and we continue on the process. And if there's things that he or she can give you through some of these dormant months to be working on in preparation for that, even better. So I strongly recommend that you do that. Again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but let me apologize. I'm not sure, as I said, what's happened with Clint here. I suspect that he's run into an issue here, so it looks like we're probably not going to have a coach's corner this evening. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that for next week, and the questions I had set aside. And really, just to give you sort of a heads up, we were going to talk about defining a coach's career. Some of the things that we're going to discuss, of course, some tips that we as golf professionals might have received. Now, in fact, I'm going to save some of these questions and ask the guys when they come on a little bit later on the second half of the show, Tom Stickney and Chuck Evans, and I'm going to save a few of these questions for them and talk about that. Let me also remind you that one of the other things I think that you want to make sure that you do while you're working into your off season, in addition to maintaining a good fitness routine, jotting some notes down in preparation for next season, maintaining a good healthy diet, and maybe working on some of the fundamentals in there, is to watch some of the top players in the world. Obviously, golf now is pretty much going all year round. Years ago, they used to sort of close off in the fall, and you had a couple of months where there wasn't really any golf on TV. But through the expansion of the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour, they're pretty much going 12 months of the year now. So there's usually a golf tournament somewhere in the world. Try to watch them if you can. And again, I always encourage, especially beginning golfers, to maybe have a pad of paper or something, or whatever medium form that you want to use, whether it be, as I said, a tablet or your cell phone if you keep notes in there somewhere. But certainly keep a pad of paper beside you. And as you're watching some of these players, if there's things that you don't understand or you see them doing, that might be something good too, to jot those notes down for questions that you might have with the professional that you're working with. You might notice Phil doing something and saying, I like what he's doing here, and I'd like to incorporate that in my game. Or I'm not sure, and maybe there's a scenario that he's a situation he's got himself in on a particular hole, and you're not sure why, he's chosen that path. And obviously the coach is not going to know. He's not inside Phil's head, but he might be able to shed a light on, especially if it involves a troubled shot or something like that. He may be able to shed some light as to why the player may or may not have gone that route as opposed to an alternative route. And the reason why this is important is this goes really into strategy. I can't emphasize enough, it's nice to have a good-looking golf swing. It's great to be able to make solid contact with the golf ball. But even more importantly, you have to have a strategy when you're out playing the game. You have to come to the table, if you will, with sort of a preconceived idea of how you want to tackle the golf course, and hole by hole, not just the overall course, but hole by hole. And for those of you that play a particular golf course on a regular basis, grab one of the scorecards or go on their website if they've got one, which most of them I'm sure do, and just go hole by hole and make a note of the yardage and sort of plot your thoughts as to how you want to handle it. If you've been playing it for any length of time, you know where the good landing areas are, and you can sort of plot a strategy hole by hole. If you've been struggling to make par on that hole, then you want to look at it and say, okay, maybe I've been playing to the wrong side of the fairway. Maybe I need to look at hitting a different club off the tee. Maybe you're hitting it too far down and putting yourself in a position where you're in between clubs. So maybe you want to scale it back and leave yourself a fuller shot into the green with a full iron, as opposed to sort of an in-between shot. If you're not a good bunker player, watch some of the professionals, see how they set up. I know it's not always easy to get everything in full sight. Sometimes the camera angles are not always conducive for that. But those are things, take note of what the professionals are doing in some of these tournaments. When you see them setting up, you'll notice sometimes some of the players will be, and I'm talking about, of course, right-handed players now, will be open very wide to their target, especially on a short greenside bunker shot where the pin is cut very close to the side of the green that their bunker is on. Quite often you'll see them open their stance up quite wide. They'll open up the club face very wide, and we'll sort of really cut across the target line, if you will, and following their body line. And there's a reason they do that. Of course, they're trying to get the ball up quickly and land as softly as possible. Whereas on a longer bunker shot, maybe the pin is on the other side. The bunker is not right up against the green. Maybe it's a little bit further away. You might see them have a little bit more or a little less open stance and a little bit less open club face, because they want the ball to fly a little bit further on the green and roll towards the cup that may be on the pin placement that might be on the other side of the green. So there's a lot of things to take note of here. And again, if you're not working with somebody, or you are working with somebody, what a great opportunity to make some mental notes, if you will, or jot some notes down on a piece of paper, what have you, and bring those the next time you're getting together with your coach and talk about some of the things. Say, I noticed watching the tournament this past weekend that so-and-so did this when they were in the greenside bunker. Let's talk about that a little bit. Why is he doing this, and why is she doing that? and have a discussion maybe for the first few minutes before you get right into your lesson. And then, of course, you might want to try and execute some of these shots that you're witnessing. You might want to have your coach walk through some of the setups, proper setups and techniques as to these particular shots. So these are things that you can do as well in preparation, especially, again, for those of you that are winding down your season. There's really no excuse. There's a lot of things that you can do indoors in your own home. As I said earlier, I use a full-length mirror, and I work through my entire golf swing using that mirror. Even though I'm here in Florida and have the advantage of going out, sometimes in the evening when there's a lot of garbage on TV, which there seems to be a lot lately, I'll grab a club. I'll grab a 9-iron or a pitching wedge or what have you. Sometimes I'll even grab my 7-iron, and I'll just go through the motions of my golf swing, and I'll check my grip, make sure I've got a good proper grip, and my posture and alignment and things are set up correctly, and I'll use that mirror as a reference to help me guide me in the proper motions as well as I'm going through the golf swing. Make sure I'm taking the club back properly in a nice one-piece takeaway. And also when I'm coming down, make sure I'm transitioning properly in the golf swing. So I'm going to check some of those points as well. And those are things that you can do. Another thing, going back to the exercise part, one thing that I do as well that I think is really, really good, helps for some of the mobility. There's lots of great stretching techniques, but one I do, particularly if you have high-backed chairs, whether it be a lazy boy chair or a dining chair that has a high back, I stand straight directly behind the chair, close to the chair. I'm not leaning. I'm standing, perfectly erect behind the chair, and I'll place my hands on the top. And what I will do is I'll be facing the chair, the back of the chair, and I will rotate my body, my upper body only. I'll leave my legs stationary, and I'll be maybe inside shoulder width. I won't go, obviously, full shoulder width, but I'll be inside. And I'll rotate my upper body and shoulders and torso to the right 90 degrees, or as best as I can. Certainly don't want you to overstretch. And then I'll hold it there for maybe 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds. And then I'll come back to the center position, and then I'll rotate to the left, and I'll try to go to 90 degrees as well. And the reason why I do that is it helps stretch the muscles, not only in my back, but in the sides as well, my oblique muscles, and also even get some of the glute muscles working there as well a little bit. And then what I will do is I will rotate that around again, going to the right and then going to the left each way several times, just doing that stretch. And I'll do that actually every day throughout the week, just to keep those muscles stretched, so that when I go out to the golf course, I certainly may have an additional stretching routine that I might do very quickly when I get out to the golf course. But I've sort of warmed those muscles up. Or at night, sometimes, as I said, when it's nothing good on TV, I'll do some of these stretches and that just to keep my muscles loose. And it's amazing how much your flexibility will be not only maintained, but will increase by doing some of these very simple exercises. And, as I said, for those of you that maybe not working with a fitness instructor, there's lots of great fitness instructors you can reach out to online. Some of them, as I said, have been on the show. I mentioned a few earlier, and you can certainly try and connect with some of them in the hopes of helping you handle some of that areas of the game. So again, just to recap, a good fitness program, eat properly, a good nutritional diet is paramount. Work on the fundamentals, particularly through the winter months. If you have an opportunity to get into a warmer climate, by all means, I strongly encourage you to do that. Take a little weekender down to Myrtle Beach or somewhere, or here down in Florida. There's lots of great places down by Orlando. Maybe make a short family vacation if you can swing it, and get down to a warmer climate and get out and play some golf in the winter months if you can afford it. And don't have too many time restraints on your time, by all means, I encourage you to do that. The other thing that I want to do, I just want to very quickly, and I apologize for having to sort of fill the time in here, but I've obviously got to wait to my very special guests that are going to be joining me here shortly. And guys, if you happen to be tuning in to the show a little bit earlier, Chuck, Tom, by all means, feel free to call in any time. We'll more than happy to start the segment a little bit early. So if you're listening in, guys, by all means, if you're able to, I strongly invite you to call in a little bit earlier. All kidding aside, these things happen, and I feel very blessed and very honored to have some of the many coaches and teacher professionals join me on the show here. And this doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, we run into a scheduling conflict or last minute things can creep up, and sometimes these guys, have to cancel out last minute or can't make it for one reason or another. So I certainly harbor no ill will, and I can promise you I'll be busting Clint's chops the next time he comes on the show. You can be sure of that. But as I said, I feel very blessed and very honored to have these guys giving of their time to come on the show. They're not being paid to do this. So again, I feel very honored and very blessed to have them do that. So certainly no ill will to any of these guys when this sort of thing happens. And I try to, as best I can, I try to normally fill things in with usually some stuff. And I got caught off a little bit off guard tonight, so I apologize. But as I said, we're going to be talking to Tom Stickney and Chuck Evans here in a little bit. And we're going to be talking about really sort of the evolution of golf. Where it sort of started with golf instruction, how these guys sort of got their chops, if you will, and where they are now and where they see some of the instruction going in the future. And then we're going to talk a little bit also, I'm going to throw in there a little bit about maybe some junior golf as well. I know both of them have worked with juniors before and still do, and we'll talk to them a little bit about what they're seeing, some of the up-and-comers on the making their way out to the golf scene, if you will, and then we'll talk a little bit with Tom about the Vidanta golf resorts in general in Mexico. There's, I believe, 7 of them, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, and he can shed some light on some of the great golf that you can play. And that's another thing too. I know some of you out there that maybe play golf, maybe you belong to a specific golf club, maybe you have a membership somewhere, and you obviously want to get full benefits there. But I think with so many great resorts and so many great facilities around the world now, to really get out there and test your game, you just got to make a point of traveling a little bit, and especially if you have the time, maybe you're retired now, and you have an opportunity to maybe go and play some great golf courses. And I'll tell you right now, for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with this, but here or just up in the state of Alabama, they have the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail, and I believe there is either 10 or 11. I can't remember the exact number. I think it might be 11 golf courses. On the bottom of the spectrum, of course, you've got the Highlands in Dothan, Alabama, which is the southern part of the state, and then you go right up into Huntsville, Alabama. You've got courses up in that area as well, and all points in between. There's a few of them in around the Birmingham area, Auburn, of course, down by Mobile. There's in the Prattville area where they've actually hosted a number of LPGA events, as well as I think there's been a PGA event there in that area as well as a Champions Tour event. So some great golf there. And if you get an opportunity to come down for any length of time here in the southeastern part of the United States, I would strongly urge you to come out and play, especially if you can take a few days. Maybe you can head up to Birmingham, and there's about 2 or 3 golf courses. The Robert Trent's within, a few hours drive. There's one obviously in the Robert Trent's in the Birmingham area, but there's some just outside, about an hour or so outside. So you can certainly, get your hotel or whatnot in the area, and then venture out and play some phenomenal golf courses. And as I said, there's one down in Dothan, Alabama, the Highlands, which has two 18-hole golf, three nines, and then also has a par 3. And they've got a phenomenal. I've played it many, many times, and been on the practice tee, and they've got a great practice tee, great range, and the course is always in phenomenal shape. And that's in the southern part. So for those of you that are maybe migrating to parts of Florida, you might want to consider heading over to Dothan, Alabama, and playing the Highlands, especially those of you vacationing or some of you snowbirds down here in the northwest part, up around Panama City Beach, where I am, and right through Pensacola. You're only a couple of hours away from Dothan. You can certainly scoot up there as well and play something a little bit different. And the Robert Trent Jones Trail, as I said, either has 10 or 11, I believe it's 11 golf courses throughout the state of Alabama, which is all part of the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail. And I understand that Mississippi also has a Mississippi Golf Trail, and I believe Georgia has a Georgia Golf Trail now as well, filled with some great golf courses. So, get out there and play. Don't just play your local club. Get out there and play some other great golf courses. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. There's just some phenomenal tracks, and it just amazes me just how many great golf courses that are open and accessible to the public, and very, very reasonable. One of the great things I like about the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail is they have, I think it's within 100 miles of their facilities. So even though I'm in Florida, I can purchase. They have a Robert Trent Jones. They have a golf trail card, and what that allows you to do is it's an annual membership of I think it's about $39, and you can purchase that annually. And what it does is you can get on most of the golf courses on that Alabama Golf Trail for half price. So you pay a one-time fee each season of $39. And just to give you an example, at the Highlands, I think the annual or the green fee is about $65, maybe $70 regularly, and I get on there for just under $40. So basically about the same cost as what I pay for the golf trail card, I pay in green fees for, and it's a phenomenal golf course. So if you're somebody that lives close to the Alabama border and you're close to one of these facilities and you haven't got one, go out. It's worth $39, especially if you play a lot of golf, and you can play any of the golf courses on the Alabama Golf Trail for a greatly reduced green fee, and that includes the cart, of course. So you can save yourself a little bit of money as well and play some great tracks. But as I said, there's some other great golf courses as well. Many of the golf courses here in the Southeast, you will find, as I've mentioned many, many times on the show, all encapsulated in a great guide called the South Coast Golf Guide, which is produced and printed by a very good friend of mine, Jonathan Laird, who is the owner of the South Coast Golf Guide. So inside that guide, which comes out quarterly, and I believe there was just one that came out in September, so we'll be gearing up for another one here pretty soon. It has pretty much all of the golf courses literally from Texas right over Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, and of course through the northwestern part of Florida. Some great golf courses contained in that guide. So if you want to get a copy of that guide, go to southcoastgolfguide.com. That's southcoastgolfguide.com, and you can actually request a copy of the guide be sent to you. You don't have to be living in this area. You can be living up in the Northeast, but maybe planning on a trip coming down here south, and you want to know some of the great courses in here. It will give you all the information you need to contact the course to arrange tee times, tells you a little bit about the course. Course gives you some photos of what the course looks like and the ratings and so forth, and also tells you what the facility houses. Some of the facilities are fully integrated with golf, with what their practice facility is, and their price point as well gives you an idea of the cost involved as well as the contact information, so you can reach out to them and plan maybe a winter trip down here in the south and give you an idea. Jonathan will be more than happy to make sure that you get a guide. If you're somebody that's already traveled down here to the southeast and you want to know where you can pick up a copy, most of the Edwin Watts, as I understand, in this area are carrying them, and particularly down in Panama City Beach area and right through to Pensacola, many of the major resorts are carrying them in this pocket guide, if you will, in their facility. So you can just ask about it. It's South Coast Golf Guide. You can just ask about it when you go there if they're carrying it and get a copy when you're there. And if not, as I said, you can go online to southcoastgolfguide.com and you can check out some of the information that's in the guide online as well, on the online version. And Jonathan also focuses on some great deals that many of the courses offer, and he'll post that up on his website as well. So some of the courses may be offering some discounted green fees, that sort of thing, specials, upcoming specials, that sort of thing. So great opportunity to get a copy of that guide. So go to southcoastgolfguide.com and learn more about that. And if you're somebody that's in the golf industry and you want to maybe think about advertising in his guide, he has a pretty broad reach. As I said, it comes out quarterly, and he's been doing it now for over, I believe, 21 years. So he's a well-established golf guide in the area. If you're interested in advertising, you can reach out to him by emailing him at jonathan@southcoastgolfguide.com. That's jonathan@southcoastgolfguide.com. And he'll be more than happy to discuss the rates and so forth with you and get you in the guide. And it is a fantastic guide. I've been using it for myself for many years now, and have actually Jonathan has put some promotions about the show. He's actually had some advertising about the Golf Talk Live and the Women of Golf show in that guide now for the last several years. So thank you, Jonathan, for all of your great help in that area. So again, go to southcoastgolfguide.com to learn more about that as well. Joining me here very shortly is going to be Tom Stickney and Chuck Evans. They'll be joining me here in just a few moments. And I thank you for, excuse me, for those of you that have stuck out the last hour with me. And again, I can't emphasize enough, I apologize that we didn't have a coach's corner tonight. And I know some of you are probably thinking, gosh, I didn't know he could talk that much. But, well, you've been sticking with me for the last hour. Now you know it's true. It happens, and you know, it's unfortunate. But, you know, the show must go on, as they say. But I've got two great guys coming on here in just a few moments. And we'll have some great discussion, assuming my voice will hold out here. Actually, let me tell you a little bit about these guys coming on, just to do the sort of a heads up, just to get a jump on the show a little bit. As I mentioned, Tom Stickney is coming on for the first time. He's the Director of Operations at the Vidanta Golf Academies in Mexico. And he's been teaching as a full-time instructional. His experience racked up for over 23-plus years in the business. He's ranked as one of the top 100 teachers by Golf Magazine. He's also ranked as a top teacher by Golf Digest. And Golf Tips Magazine as well ranks him among the top 25 instructors. He's with the TrackMan University Master Partner and the Golfing Machine GSAD authorized instructor. And he's part of the Golf Digest Top 20 Teachers Under 40 alumnus, and also the Golf Digest Best Young Teachers alumnus as well. Also joining him in a few moments is going to be Chuck Evans. As I mentioned, Chuck has been on the show a number of times over the years. Usually comes on a Coach's Corner panel and also sometimes comes on as a featured guest. He's the Executive Director of Instruction for Medicus Golf Academies and the owner of Chuck Evans Golf. And he's also a top 100 teacher by Golf Magazine, and Golf Digest also ranks him among the top teachers in America. He's also a top 50 growth of the game teacher, and as I mentioned, he's the Executive Director of Instruction for Medicus Golf Academies and owns his own Chuck Evans Golf Academy business. Been in the business a long time. We're going to talk to the two of them in a few moments when they come on board. And got some questions lined up. As I said earlier, we're going to talk about really the growth of the game from the instructional side a little bit. We may throw in some playing as well, but particularly we're going to talk a little bit about the instructional side, where it's sort of been and where it's heading to, and maybe we'll get some future forecasts from the two guys as to where they think instruction is going to go in the near future and maybe in the distant future as well. Lots of changes happening every year at the PGA show. Of course, they've always got some new interesting things coming out, and particularly in the technology side. We'll talk a little bit about that as well when the two of them come on here. But just remind everybody, of course, Golf Talk Live is live every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central. And best way to find us is go to blogtalkradio.com. Up in the search key, type Golf Talk Live, and that will take you to the main page, and you can tune in live there. And for those of you, as I said earlier, that aren't able to tune in live, if you go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, scroll down to the on-demand section. That's where all of the previously aired shows are, the recorded versions, and you can tune in and listen to those at your leisure. Many great interviews. One interview I'm always very, very proud of is, of course, my interview back in 2013 with the, around this time, actually not too many weeks from now, in 2013, I interviewed, of course, the legendary Billy Casper, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but great interview with him. It lasted actually the whole 2 hours, and it was just a real thrill for me to have him on with one of my very early interviews, and was very, very giving of his time, and just a great, great guest, and just enjoyed hearing some great stories that he was willing to share with the audience. And it's pretty safe to say that if the show had gone on for another hour, I'm sure he would have been more than eager to hang it out and tough it out for even a third hour. So I feel very blessed and very honored. And as a result of that relationship developing back in 2013, I've formed a new relationship, of course, with one of his sons, Byron Casper, who, of course, is a great top golf instructor, professional here in the United States. And we've shared some great stories over the last few years, and he's been on the show, of course, a number of times, and I consider him a good friend. So Byron Casper, of course, son of the late legendary Billy Casper, I consider a very good friend, and feel very honored and blessed to have him on the show as well. And he's shared many great stories that he experienced with his father. Just a great guy in his own rights, and always eager to help those of you out there that are struggling with your game. So make sure that you check him out, Byron Casper, of course, the Casper Academies out in San Diego area. So you can just Google him, and you'll get in touch with Casper Golf out there. And I also want to remind everybody, those of you that are in the golf profession, particularly not just a teacher or coach, but some of you guys out there that maybe you've written a great book about golf that you'd like to share, maybe some tips or training. Maybe you've written a great golf story. Jim Dusabella was on my show a number of years ago, wrote a great book about two stockbrokers called King of Clubs. It was a really, really great book, and talked about two stockbrokers that basically the gist of the story was that a bet was made, and a number of rounds were played over a very short period of time, and across the country from one side to the other, and one gentleman bet the other gentleman, and I won't give you the details of it, but it's a very interesting story. So, I'm always interested in sharing that with the audience as well. It's not always just about instruction and improving the game, but it's just making you aware of some great individuals out there, both men and women out there in the golf industry. Lots of great junior golf instructors out there, and those working to help grow the game. I've mentioned these individuals a number of times before in the past. Nicole Weller from South Carolina, in the south of Myrtle Beach area, and also Kate Tempesta, who does some great work with junior golf as well, growing the game at a very elementary level. And I mean that in the sense that working with some very, very young boys and girls, introducing them to the game up in the New York area. So, just lots of great things. I feel very honored and blessed to have them join me on the show as well over the years. Meredith Kirk, of course, from South Carolina. She was the Mrs. South Carolina winner in 2014. Also a very prominent LPGA golf instructor in the Myrtle Beach area. Really does a lot to help grow the game. And So lots of great people. Clint Wright, who's been on the show, except for tonight, many, many times. Only kidding, Clint, if you're listening. You better not be listening because you should be on the show. But and all kidding aside, he's been on the show a number of times, and just enjoy hearing some of the approaches that he has taken to this game over the years. Tony Brooks, who joined us this year, has been a guest on the show and also a guest panelist on Coach's Corner as well. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us here tonight either. But always feel blessed and honored to have new people join in the mix as well. Brennan Stooksbury, John Hughes, of course. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention John Hughes, who's been on the show many, many times. PGA Master Professional down in the Orlando area. Pete Buchanan, director at the Plain Simple Golf. Pete Buchanan, again, wealth of knowledge. Thank you guys for all of the great work that you do, and I look forward to having you guys back on future panel discussions. I always enjoy your input and appreciate you giving of your time. And as I said before, sometimes these things happen, and you just sort of have to take it in stride. And as I've mentioned many times tonight already, I feel very blessed and honored to have many of these people join me on the show and giving of their time freely. So when these things happen from time to time, you certainly can't look at it, as I say, a gift horse in the mouth. These people have given much of their time over the last several years to help grow this show. So I feel very privileged to have them be part of the program, but also to be able to call them my friends now. So two more that I'm going to add into the mix, into this group, the Golf Talk Live family, of course, are my next guests, Tom Stickney and Chuck Evans. And I'm just waiting for the two gentlemen to come on board, and I'm going to bring them on. I've already done the intros, as most of you are aware. For those of you just tuning in, let me just do a quick recap very quickly on the two of them. As I said, Tom Stickney, he is the Director of Operations at the Vidanta Golf Academies in Mexico. He's a top 100 teacher from Golf Magazine and Golf Digest, also consider a top teacher. Golf Tips Magazine also ranks him up in the top 25 instructors. Chuck Evans, the Executive Director of Instruction for Medicus Golf Academies and the owner of Chuck Evans Golf. He too is a Golf Magazine top 100, Golf Digest top teacher in America, and top 50 growth of the game teacher as well. Two great guys. Certainly look forward to having them join me here in the next little bit, and I will bring them on as soon as they're here. And I just got a quick message from my friend Clint, and unfortunately, as I suspected, something did come up here, and it's regrettable, but these things do happen. But anyways, I think I have Chuck here on the line, so let me bring Chuck on board, or one of them is on board here. Let me bring them on. Good evening and welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Yeah, this would be the good-looking one with hair.
Oh, okay. How are you doing this evening?
This is Chuck. Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Well, you've just thrown me a major lifeline. I don't know if you managed to tune in earlier tonight, Chuck, but we had a little bit of a mishap with the Coach's Corner. Unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond their control, both of my panelists unfortunately weren't able to make it last minute. So I've been floating it alone for the last hour. And believe you me, I'm looking forward to you and Tom jumping in here and bailing me out here for this last hour. So thank you very much. Chuck, I've already done the intros for both of you, and the audience, of course, you've been on here a number of times before. I want to very quickly, if you don't mind me bringing this up, I recently read somewhere, I think it was on Facebook, that you had an operation a little while ago. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I've had a couple of them. I actually had a year ago, July, I had a hip replacement. It didn't take so well, so they had to redo it again back in June. So
right.
Still trying to recover from that. So it's been a little over a year, and my golf game is my full swing is. I mean, I can hit it, but when you're only hitting at 230 off the tee and you're used to hitting at 280, it's a big difference. So and I can't play more than about 6 holes at a time. So.
Right. Well, I have no doubt, Chuck, that you'll get back in full swing here before too long, and actually that'll make a good talking point tonight that we can talk about is when you've lost a little bit of distance, how do you make up those 50 yards? How do you adjust your game accordingly? We'll talk about that when Tom comes on board. That will be one of the questions I'm going to throw to you if you don't mind. What I'm going to do, Chuck, as I said, when Tom comes on board, we'll talk about really sort of the state of the game from the instructional side. Where it sort of began and how it sort of migrated to what it is today, and where you guys foresee things changing in the future a little bit. And then I've got a few other questions I'm going to have for you guys. And then I'm going to give both of you a chance to talk a little bit about yourselves. Obviously, Tom has never been on the show before, and I know that he's part of the Vidanta organization in Mexico, so we're going to talk about that. And I see he's here right now, so let me bring Tom Stickney on as well to join in the discussion. Good evening, Tom, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. And I'm not sure if we got him quite yet. Oh, there he is. Hi, good evening, Tom. Welcome to Golf Talk Live.
How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well. It took a second to get you on board here, but you're here, and of course Chuck Evans, your good friend, is here as well.
My mentor is here. Very nice.
Well, when I chimed in, he asked which one it was. I said, well, the better looking one with hair. So I knew we had to start firing right from the hip, right?
Exactly. I'm surprised you can stay up this late. That's pretty good for you.
Yeah, let me just give a little backstory for those of you just tuning in now on the show. These two have been exchanging a few barbs and emails back and forth as we come in preparation for tonight's show. So this is a little bit sort of the backstory to this. Tom, I want to start off with you just for a second because I want to give you an opportunity just to sort of, I've already done the intros for both of you before you came on, so everybody's well aware of who you are and your background in that, but just maybe a quick refresher, if you will, where you are now and your where you work and just a little bit about your background.
Okay, great. I'm the Director of Operations for the Vidanta Golf Academies. Vidanta Golf is located in Mexico. We have 7 properties throughout Mexico and 5 golf and beach properties in places like Cabo San Lucas, Acapulco, Puerto Vallarta, Puerto Penasco, and Riviera Maya. So I'm lucky enough to be able to coordinate all the golf business development as well as learning and performance centers in all those places, and hope to give everybody down here in Mexico and our guests a good golf instructional experience when they come visit. So I'm very fortunate to be down here where it's warm all the time.
Yeah, well, I talked about it. I was just saying to Chuck a few moments ago when he first came on. Normally, the first hour I have a coach's corner panel discussion, and regrettably, last minute both of my instructors had to tend to some other important pressing issues, and unfortunately we didn't have the panel discussion, so I've been sort of winging it here, and I've been just praying that you guys were going to call in early a little bit to help me out. But I'm going to actually, some questions that I had for the panel discussion, Tom, I'm going to throw into our discussion here for the next hour. But what I want to do, guys, is this. Tom, again, I'll start with you a little bit, and then Chuck, by all means, feel free to jump in as well. Let's talk a little bit about the evolution of golf instruction. Let's talk about where golf instruction was maybe 30 years ago up to where it is now, and then we'll sort of move into where it's sort of heading down the road and in the near future. So, Tom, start us off. When you first got into the business, 23, 24 plus years ago, what was the sort of state of golf instruction? What was your exposure, if you will, to golf instruction?
It's a very interesting question because a lot of what I started with is no longer, and same thing with Chuck. I got into golf instruction early 90s. I graduated from college in 92, and so when I had an opportunity to teach, the only way I could find information was in the library through books and videos, and it was a very, very closed shop, a very proprietary. Information was very proprietary at the time. As a matter of fact, there was I was taught by a guy that was mentored under a very big-name teacher, and I wanted to go see how this particular gentleman ran his golf operation, his learning center. And I actually called down there and I said, "Hey, I'd like to come shadow you guys." And he said, "Sure, for $1,000 a day, I'll be more than happy to let you come out." And that's really not what it is anymore. You know, I reached out to Chuck Evans, because of his knowledge in the Golfing Machine book, and found somebody that was very anxious to share knowledge. Because there was no YouTube, there was no internet, and basically there was all opinions. And now, dealing with Chuck and the Golfing Machine, as well as being able to look on YouTube and having TrackMan and a lot of other 3D tools, all of a sudden now kids have an opportunity to learn a lot about the mechanical side of instruction without ever teaching a lesson. And Chuck can certainly expand on this because he's been doing it, a little bit longer than I have, but it was very proprietary. I don't know I'm sure, Chuck, you found those same things happening when you first started?
Yeah, I mean, some of them are pretty closed. I mean, I had the opportunity to talk to some of the, big guys at the time and spend time with them, the Toskis, the Flicks, the Jimmy Ballards, all those people. And some of them would talk to you and some of them wouldn't, so you had to find your information the best way you could, and that involved trying to get a hold of people that you didn't know but had a good reputation, and trying to pick their brains to see how much they were willing to share. So
yeah, most definitely. Now, and you're right, some of them definitely would, but a lot of them wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move up to a little bit more modern times. As you've already mentioned some of the things now, there's YouTube videos, Tom, there's all kinds of things out there now available out. So let's come out to sort of current time, if you will, instruction. You mentioned, there's a couple things that aren't around sort of anymore. But what are some of the things now that you see that really you hadn't seen back, 20 or so years ago that really surprised you? What are some of the things in instruction that you've been introduced here maybe in the last 5 years that have really surprised you?
Well, I go back to when we had analog video. When I first started, I was one of the first teachers that had split screen video in my particular town, and it was a very, very revolutionary back in the early 90s to be able to see the front view and the down the line view at the same time. So all of a sudden you could see how, if your head moved one way or the other, what it would do to the club shaft, or if the club shaft moved one way or the other, what it would do to your body. And so it was all a big guess. What did you see versus what I saw? And then as time has gone on, we've started to realize that video obviously is 2D, and through the advent of 3D motion analysis and tools like TrackMan, all of a sudden now we're given an MRI into what's actually going on. So there aren't a lot of questions anymore about what exactly is going on. The big question now is, how do we implement what we see in the simplest possible manner? And that's the big question. That's where, I don't think any teacher would disagree with the basic what's going on. The guy's maybe coming out to in and his club face is wide open, and then he's hitting push slices. What we all differ in is, how do we fix that? And through the advent of these technologies, we're starting to figure out better ways and more efficient ways based on the person's kinesiology and physiology on how to do this. So it's making it a lot easier. It's still difficult, but it's making it a lot easier for us to make less mistakes as instructors.
Right. Well, it's giving you more.
I would agree 100% with that. The things that are out, Tom uses TrackMan. I use FlightScope. I also use 3D motion capture with MySwing, which is a wireless system. And what that allows you to do, and again, everybody has their own way of trying to fix and or repair an issue. But with the 3D motion capture and the radar devices, it's basically become so simple. You put them on there, you can measure everything possible. And the hardest part is prioritizing the one thing that will greatly affect most others. That's the most difficult part for most teachers.
Yeah, and I tell you, and Chuck will tell you that when you start coupling that with, the knowledge of his knowledge of the golfing machine, now all of a sudden we start to realize that everybody has their own innate golf swing, but now we can fix the one thing that really makes a difference and takes you, 2 days hitting golf balls to fix, as opposed to picking something down the line that might take you a month to fix.
Right. So basically what technology has done now, or shall I say the advancement with the technology that you're seeing and making available to you is really twofold. Number one, what it does is it's giving you more information essentially at your fingertips that you didn't maybe have before or would take you a longer time to assess. But also it zeroes in on where the problems are a little bit faster, as you just pointed out, Tom, than maybe what it did 20 or 30 years ago. Again, it would take you a longer time to draw some of those assessments without that technology. Would that be a fair, accurate portrayal?
No question. And, here's a prime example. I mean, when I first started teaching, in learning, I think it probably took me at least 10,000 hours of trial and error through mechanical things, as well as learning the golf swing, to be an effective teacher. I didn't say to be a great teacher, just to be effective. And I think Chuck will second this, and I'm going to ask him in a second. But, it took me a long time to put all the pieces together because I didn't have all the answers immediately. Whereas now, we do. I mean, Chuck, how much quicker would you have gotten where you are, if you'd have had that from day one?
Well, obviously, I mean, video cameras, like you said, they're 2D. There are things you cannot see in 2D that you can see in 3D. So,
right.
And one of the biggest things that you absolutely can't measure on 2D is wrist angles, and also how much your left arm is getting pulled into your chest in the start down, and those are things you just can't see in 2D.
Right.
That stuff, being around that stuff has sharpened your eye. I mean, Tom has a pretty good eye, and I'm not too bad myself. We're looking at things without video cameras.
Right.
But with the age of all the technology out there, it does make things easier. Now, having said that, I've got players that don't want to see anything on technology. So we rely strictly on feel and what ifs. So in that case, we start with the ball. Whatever it's doing, we back it up to the club. Whatever the club's doing, we back up to the body. So we kind of use that cycle to get us where we need to go to fix things. So
right.
In fact,
Tom,
I was on the phone. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead and finish your thought.
Well, I was on the phone today with a guy that Tom knows really well as well, and he's one of the top teachers in the world, and he was asking me about his swing, and I gave him my diagnosis based on what he was telling me. He shot me over some video, and sure enough, I texted him back and I said, "It's exactly what we talked about before you sent me the video." So
right. Well, and that obviously comes with experience, Chuck. I mean, after when you are watching enough golfers and you kind of get an understanding of what to look for, but I can certainly see where it's very advantageous, especially for some of the newer, younger instructors coming out that maybe don't have as much experience or haven't had as much exposure to as many players yet. That technology is very advantageous. But I want to talk about the other side a little bit because there's a danger too, I think, Tom, as well as there not with technology.
No question.
And Chuck, the ups and downs, if you will, of getting too much into the numbers. And I've talked about this many times on the show. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about, let's be honest. Technology is great. We all love it, and there's definite pluses for it. but there's also some minuses as well. Let's touch a little bit on that from your perspective. Tom, I'll let you go, and then Chuck.
Okay.
Yeah, and I am probably one of the biggest advocates of 3D motion analysis, force plates, and TrackMan in instruction, because I feel like it's invaluable. However, I will say with knowledge comes, power, and with knowledge and power comes danger. And I will say that the best instructors in the world mention numbers very, very little in their instruction. They use it. James Lights has a great statement about TrackMan and 3D motion analysis. It's not watching the student, it's watching us, the instructors, and making sure that we don't make mistakes. If we see that the path is going too far to the left, I don't have to tell a guy, it's 7 degrees left. It doesn't really matter what the number is. It's just showing. I like to use it to show me trends. What's the trend of what this guy is doing?
Right.
And I think too many of the younger teachers, especially the kids starting out now, are kind of using technology like Chuck and I used video incorrectly when it first came out. I mean, and Chuck will tell you as well. When we first started with video, we thought that everybody had to hit position A, B, C, D, E, so on and so forth, or you couldn't be effective to make the swings look pretty and be effective. But what we found out is that everybody has their own idiosyncrasies. And over time, we started to be able to see the nuances that allowed people to play. Jack's flying right elbow, somebody else is straightening right knee, blah, blah, blah. And these kids are getting stuck focusing on, well, you have to be 2 degrees up, 3 degrees to the right, X degrees down, dynamic law of this, and that's just not the case. And it is dangerous, and it takes a while. It took Chuck and I a while to learn how to use video, and it'll take the younger generation a while to learn how to use TrackMan effectively. But I think the perfect blend is some old school and some new school. I highly recommend that all the kids that want to get up and want to teach today, take the time and go back and look at the old YouTube videos of Jimmy Ballard, of Chuck, of myself, teaching a long time ago without technology. And you'll find if you'll blend those two, you'll be a whole lot better. But that's at least some of the dangers I've seen.
Right. And Chuck, before I let you chime in, just one more thought I want to throw in here, and then Chuck, I want to hear your thoughts as well. And I know this is going to seem a little bit out of the box, but one of the dangers that I see with technology, and I can see this happening at some point, it certainly may not be in any of our lifetime, but, it's getting to the point now, and I've heard many criticisms against, and Tom, I would agree with you, I think some of the younger instructors get so wrapped up in the numbers and the technology that they're not even looking at their students anymore. They're looking at a screen or a monitor all the time. And I can see this happening down the road as technology continues to advance, where your golfer is going to step into a booth, and they're not even going to see the instructor. The instructor is going to be behind the shield, and looking at all the data, and once the student's done, there's a little printout's going to come out and say, okay, this is what I'm seeing. This, and you're not even going to talk to the instructor anymore. And I know this sounds a little far-fetched, but is this a danger with some of the instructors now, Chuck, that they're not really paying attention to the students anymore? They're focusing too much on the technology.
They are, and like Tom said, when we started out, none of that was available. Now you can not have a clue about teaching golf, and within 3 years of watching all the internet videos about TrackMan, Flight Scope, MySwing, all this stuff, you can be an expert. Now, in that 3 years, you may have taught your friends, but the big difference is, the guys our age and older, they have what I call boots on the ground. They have tons and years of experience improving golfers. Whether or not it agrees with the science community, it really didn't make any difference to me. If a coach is getting results with their players, that's all the player cares about.
You got it.
The player. I mean, Tom, your degree's in physiology, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So they could care less if Tom's degree is in physiology. They don't care. They just want to hit the ball better.
Right, and
that's all they want to do.
Yeah, and that goes back to that age-old argument that is on the internet. You'll hear some criticisms about, you'll hear a certain teacher's name who advocates technology with his tour players, and another teacher that is a big-name teacher that doesn't involve technology within his lessons. And they're saying, well, so-and-so should do this and so-and-so should do that. Like you said, Chuck, the bottom line is who's getting results. I mean, I really don't think a tour pro is going to pay you a lot of money if you're not getting results.
Exactly, well, and then you see on some of these internet forums, somebody will put a video up and say, "What would you fix?" Right. Everybody starts on these rants, and nobody ever asks, "Well, what the hell is the ball doing?" That should be the first question you ask. Instead, you have 16 pages of things that need to be fixed.
Yeah, and that's why. Yeah, that's why I don't get into, I don't even watch the forums anymore. I've gotten to the point where I don't even, jump into them just because of that. It gets to a point where he said, she said, and then the next thing you know, they're cussing one another out, and it's just not good for the right. industry as a whole. I want to ask you guys, I'm going to flip the script just a little bit. I want to ask you guys something. I thought this would be an interesting question to ask both of you. Chuck, I'm going to start with you this time, if you don't mind. What were some of the most valuable tips that you remember seeing throughout your career?
Well, I started quite a while before Tom, so I spent a lot of time with the older teachers, and they were all about motion. Keep everything flowing with motion. There wasn't a lot of trying to segment body parts and restrict motion. And, I got away from that when I went into the golfing machine. And, the golfing machine, Homer gave us a wonderful outline because there was not one certain way to swing a club. There's 512 quadrillion, 364 trillion, ways to do it, and everybody on the planet falls within there somewhere. And right. our job as an instructor, whether you use the golfing machine or anything else you want to use, is to find out what that player needs to produce their best golf. You're going to have Mr. and Mrs. Haverkamp come to you. Tom doesn't, because he only teaches all these high-end people. But, some of us teach these 70, 80, 90-year-old guys, right?
Right.
And and they're not going to change their golf swing.
No, of course not.
Because they're not going to practice. So as a teacher, we had to give them a more efficient way to do what they're doing without right. changing their golf swing, so that they can hit better shots. I mean, I'll just give you a little example, and this is not tooting my horn. It's just this is how simple. So this guy came in the other day. He had, he plays golf. He's a member at this club, and Tom, he set up square hips, square feet, shoulders open 10.5 degrees. His club is 17 degrees left through the ball. 17 degrees left. So in my infinite, wisdom, because I have all this stuff in this vast storehouse of useless information, I turned his shoulders 5 degrees right, took his whole body and aimed it 10 degrees right, and had him make his same swing. So now, instead of coming out and across, he came down and right from the inside the target line. I mean, it didn't take but 3 swings to change that. Now, here's the hard part. They leave you and they go back and they don't practice and they forget what you just told them to do. And they say, wow, I wonder why it isn't working now. So I guess the best advice I ever got was start from the ball, go back to the club, from the club to the body.
Right.
No
and
question.
That's
no
great
question.
advice. Chuck, the other thing, too, is that I think a lot of instructors, fall into this trap is it's not so much that they forget what they've been taught, but they don't practice and they go back to what's comfortable to them. A lot of times when you change somebody that's maybe got a very poor grip and you teach them, a proper grip, it's foreign to them. It's uncomfortable because their hands have been sitting on that club for 15 years a certain way. It's comfortable. That's how they've held it for those 15 years. And now you put something that's foreign to them, and it might, during that practice session, those 15, 20, 30 swings that you've got them going through, it works well, but then as soon as they get away, their hands go back to that uncomfortable position. And again, that's through lack of practice. They're just
and the grip is the hardest thing, in my opinion, to change with a player for the exact reasons you just talked about. So the grip basically is one of the last things that I will try to change on a player. I will try to work everything around, and unless they're going to commit to me, they're going to practice, and a couple of days a week and play golf. And, we've all had the lessons where you see the guy, and a month later he comes in and said, "Did you have time to practice?" No. So you're basically starting all over again. So,
right.
they always say no.
Well,
what have you been doing? I've been in my cabin up in the mountains. I've just been hanging out. Okay.
Well, and then it goes back to what Chuck was talking about. I think probably the best education I ever received in golf instruction. I worked until I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s, probably around 30. I got a job in Naples, Florida, and I went from a resort in North Florida where people could move to Naples where nobody could move. And I spent 3 years teaching there, and it was absolutely amazing. And I think Chuck made a great point. And regardless of what 3D motion, TrackMan, Flight Scope, the video says, the bottom line is results. And sometimes something as simple as aiming somebody, more to the right, or taking somebody's club face and putting it in a more shut condition so they hit full is absolute. To them, it's pure genius, and to the golf instructor, it should be that simple. But all too often, we get stuck as instructors, especially early on in your career. You want to show the student how smart you are, and you want to tell them why you're so great with all this information, when reality is they don't care. And in the interview process, if you ask them what they wanted to do and they said, "I just want to stop hitting the ball to the right," they don't care what you do. As long as they leave the lesson with that ball going left, they're happy as clams. And it wouldn't matter if it's going 80 yards to the left. As long as it's not going to the right, they're happy. And one other thing I'll say on this, and this took me a long time to realize, and I screwed up a lot of students in the interim until I realized this point. I have students that hitting the ball left or right that would shoot between 90 and 100. That said, come to me, and they would say, "I want to hit the ball to the left." Would be happier shooting 95 to 115 hitting the ball left than they would hitting the ball left or right. Mm-hmm. So the bottom line is, it's not always about score. It's not always about the perfect golf swing. It's about what the student wants. And Chuck said it perfectly when he said it's all about fixing the simplest thing to get the biggest impact. And that is teaching in a nutshell. And I think that when you're an old school teacher like he and I are, and where we started, that's what you learn. It's not about making sure that your path is 4 degrees to the right every single time. It's about getting results.
Well, and I'm going to. Sorry, go ahead, Chuck. Go ahead.
No, and I just want to add a little bit to that, and again, it's certainly not a bash on technology, because I use technology, but at the same time, you can get all these perfect numbers, and that person may not be able to play golf. Because Homer Kelly used to say you can have a player in all the correct, whatever that means, positions, and they can still miss the ball. Kenny Perry's path is 9 degrees right with a 6-degree closed club face. Now, that's 3 times more than the average on the PGA Tour. But if you try to get Kenny to hit it 3 to the right and 1.5 closed, he couldn't play golf.
Yeah.
But the numbers sure look better.
Well, and here's the thing, too.
That's my whole point.
Right. Here's the thing, too. I think you also have to look at the individual, and I think this is what's, for a while, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with sort of the evolution of golf instruction. There was a period of time where I think, and I'm certainly not going to use a paintbrush and broaden the stroke on everybody. But I think there was certainly a segment of the golf instructional population that was trying to put everybody into the same box. Let's build this perfect swing. Let's get everybody these angles in a certain position up at the top and so on and so forth. And I think what happens is they weren't taking into consideration that everybody's built differently. You've got tall players, short players, thin, so on. And this is not meant to be a criticism to the golf industry, but I think that as technology was starting to sort of develop, this is what was starting the byproduct of, if you will. And I don't know whether you guys agree with that or not, but that was something that I noticed, was that everybody was trying to, corner everybody into the same block, if you will. And that's not always going to work because, as you just pointed out with Kenny Perry, right?
It actually happened long before technology. I mean, I think every teacher is guilty of pushing people into a one-way or a my-way type of environment.
Sure.
And then as you get better as an instructor, you start to realize that, you know what, there's no two PGA Tour golf swings that look the same. And there's a million ways to do it, as Homer said, and as Chuck alluded to earlier. Out of those, quadrillion stroke patterns, there's one that works for somebody. And I could personally care less if it's 6 degrees to the right or 6 degrees to the left, as long as it works consistently.
Right, exactly.
And as long as the ball's doing what they want to do, what mess with it? Just work on the short game. I mean, we all get people that say, "Hey, I want to hit a draw," and my first question is why? Well, it goes for it. No, it doesn't. If all your parameters are the same via Flight Scope and TrackMan, if all the parameters are the same, it's going to do exactly the same thing, whether it's fading or whether it's drawing.
Right, exactly. I want to ask next, and Tom, I'll start with you on this one here. Talk about the differences. Is there a difference between teaching players on the lesson tee, which some of the players were just talking about, compared to those out on tour? How do we teach differently to Joe Public than what we do to the guys on tour?
It's a good question. And I will say that PGA Tour players, the good Lord happened to give them whatever it is. And it is some sort of hand-eye coordination that most people don't have, and some sort of mental stability golf-wise that the average person does not have. And when they grab the golf club, they just seem to naturally hit it better and score better and play better than most of their peer group. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean that they don't fall into the same traps that the average player does. Usually when you see tour players go incorrect, Kenny Perry might be swinging too much to the right. Bruce Liskey might have been swinging too much to the left. But the bottom line is, with tour players, you typically fight successes that they've had in the past. And let me explain that to you. If you take a guy like Phil Mickelson, for example, who's always had a very long, loose golf swing. His rear knee has tended to bounce around. His club has tended to droop well past parallel. And you come to him and you say, Phil, I think you need to tighten up your golf swing. We need to give it a little bit more lower body stability. I want to keep the club give it a little bit more stability up top. And it's going to do X, Y, and Z. With tour players, the first thing he's going to look at you and say is, hey, haven't I won like $8 billion swinging this way? Why should I change? So you're fighting the past successes. And you have to be very mindful of keeping their individuality in there as well as their feel. With the amateurs, in the country club sector, you've got to give them something that they're very instant gratification oriented, where they spend, we're and this is where I might differ than other people. I've spent my last 10 years in very affluent upscale private clubs, so my members had spent more time up until they retired in their 50s and 60s making money and less practicing. So they were past an age where I can really do something. They were past the physiology level where I can do something. with any great, it was very tough to lay out a very long practice plan and things. So I spent a lot of time working around issues that they weren't going to change for lack of practice, or they couldn't change from physiology. So I think that's the difference, at least in my opinion, between tour players and the average person.
Well, and I think, what I was going to add very quickly, Chuck, and then I'll let you. You raised an interesting point along that line earlier, Chuck, with respect to, some of these older players coming. You're not going to reinvent the wheel with somebody that's coming in at 65. I mean, you can make some adjustments and modifications to improve a little bit as what they're doing and certainly make it more enjoyable. But you're not going to reinvent the wheel with a player that's coming in at 65, 70 years of age. It's just not going to make any sense. And, they're just going to walk away frustrated, and you're going to end up, losing a customer. But so, what Tom was just talking about here is, you've got a segment of the population that, spent the early part of their careers developing a career and now, want to enjoy, a golf life, if you will, as in the retirement, but they haven't really put the time and effort in those earlier years getting, building a golf game, and all of a sudden they want miracles worked. And, what do we do with players like that?
Well, and it's like Tom said. I mean, it's when and I'll just give you. I just heard about this report that just came out recently that 79% of all the golfers that take lessons are aged 54 to 58 years old. 79%. So that means that those other 20%, for round numbers, are all your younger guys, and most of them are actually juniors and younger ladies.
Right.
So when you look at that, I mean, I was stuck in that for a while. I mean, you get someone that you think is, you have this model, or not a model, but you have this vision of what a golf swing should look like, and people come to your golf schools or whatever, and you're trying to get them to not necessarily hit positions, but to have certain locations of the club and body. And they're just people that cannot do that. So when they can't do that, you've got to be able to adapt pretty quickly. On the tour side of things, I mean, I have a guy that he won his rookie year and started, he started we call it rabbit ears on the tour, and Tom, you know what I mean. So they listen to everybody and anybody while they're out there and their coach isn't there. So, or then they see somebody that, in this guy's particular case, there's not maybe two people on tour that hit it farther than he does, because he hits it 330 dead straight. But so you start, they start listening to these players. They start watching these coaches, and pretty soon they got rabbit ears, and all this stuff is going through their head, and they're trying all these things, and they're getting away from what got them to where they are. Yeah. So, you have to be really careful, with the guys and gals that are out there playing golf for a living. Now, if they're in the 150 and below, then they're going to need some tweaking somewhere. But everybody that's in that exempt list at 125 and above, they pretty much got there because they already have a good golf game. And when something goes awry, it's typically not their full swing. They'll lose confidence in a certain club, or their short game starts not being what it needs to be. So, like I said, you got to be careful about that stuff, and because they're doing it for a living, and their success depends on what you're giving them. If you start giving them too much information, and you start showing them too many numbers, I mean, I can go down the list of tour players that I know as juniors were world beaters that are not world beaters any longer because they got too technical with what they're doing instead of just swinging the golf club.
Well, and this leads right into my final question, guys, that I'm going to give you each a few moments to talk about. And I'm going to target the collegiate golfers. As we know, it can be quite rigorous for some of the collegiate golfers out there, depending on where they're playing and how active they are. How do you prepare players at that level? Because they're obviously not out on tour yet, but they're at a highly competitive age. how do you prepare them mentally for competition? What would you do to get them set up to play their best golf from a mental standpoint, Tom?
Well, I'll have to defer to Chuck on this one because, as I said, over the last 10 years, I didn't deal with that many collegiate players. I just wasn't in the markets where we had a lot of collegiate players. So,
okay.
I know what it is to deal with somebody that wants to play at a high level, whether it be your club championship or a regional amateur. But I never was around a lot of the college kids. So, Chuck spends a lot of time developing juniors from the ground up. I'm talking from beginner all the way to getting college scholarships.
Right.
So, Chuck, I'm going to defer to you on this one. That's more your expertise than mine.
All right,
yeah,
Chuck.
well, first the first most important thing, it has to be fun for them, because as soon as they quit having fun, their desire and their practice regimens go away. So, we have a process that we follow, with our juniors, and depending on where they are in that development chain, it varies. But we make it fun. We make contests. We do a lot of on-course stuff. They have a lot of drills that they have to do, long game and short game. And then we talk a lot about course management, how to do your practice rounds, your pre-tournament and your post-tournament settings. And then, we deal a lot with what their thoughts are out there. So, in fact, I had this conversation just the other day with Brendan Cooper, who's a good friend of mine. He just got Midwest Section Teacher of the Year and was nominated to join the Golf Digest Best Young Teachers. And one of the juniors that we had in Kansas City when I left, he kind of took over. And that junior was a Junior Player of the Year last year. In her third year of playing golf, consistently breaks 80 and has also shot a career low of 68. But some juniors have a mental problem. Well, so do adults, actually. I mean, I got a huge mental problem. So, but I watched this interview she did. She finished third this year in Missouri State Championships, and her interview was she wanted to finish top 5. And I go, what? That's not what you think. You have to think you're going to go out and kick somebody's butt. You can't be thinking I want a top 5. And she knows better than that. But that's the process. You have to always get them, to be friends with everybody while we're on the tee, right? I mean, you can be friends with them. But when you get in competition, they're still your friend, but your job is to beat them. Your job is to beat everybody in the field. You don't go into a tournament thinking you're going to have a top 10 or a top 5 finish. You go in thinking you're going to win every single event. Yeah. And when you shake hands, when they introduce you and they say, you're going to be playing with so-and-so today, you shake their hand and you tell them, play good today, and in your mind you're thinking, I'm going to kick your butt. That's what you got to think.
Well, it's almost like you have to flip a switch, I think, at that moment. I think, like you said, you have to be cordial and a lot of the players that we've all grown up on, and Arnold Palmer and Nicholas and that, were always very cordial on the first tee and that. But then there came a point in time, once they got into the heat of the round, that switch was flicked, and now that it was competitive Jack or competitive Arnie or whatever the case may be, and it wasn't until that round was over, did they sort of come back to, hey, hope you had a good round, sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
No question. Right. And I will say that with the kids in the college setting, just from my experience, I think Chuck hit the nail on the head. I mean, the bottom line is I think more can be gleaned from course management, especially when you start talking about the top 25 Division I schools for golf, than can ever be taught into them as far as their swings are pretty well set. Not that you can't tweak things, not that you can't make things better, but I see more mistakes on wedges, being a crappy wedge player for a guy that hits at 350, a guy that hits 18 greens and consistently has terrible lag putting, things like that. Josh Gregory is a good friend of mine, and Chuck's, and he's, he was the guy that took Augusta State to 2 back-to-back national titles.
Right.
And he does a lot of player performance coaching since he's left the college coaching ranks. And what he consistently says is that the difference between these great college players and the guys on the Web Tour, and some of the guys on the Web Tour to the PGA Tour, is they just don't think their way around the golf course the way they should,
right.
and they don't focus in on the right parts of their game. They stand out there, a guy who hits a string straight 300 yards is banging drivers out there, when you look at his shot length statistics, he's terrible from 100 to 120 yards. And Josh routinely tells me that he'll go over their shot length statistics with them, and they'll go, God, I had no idea I was that bad. And it just baffles me. How could you be playing golf for a living or want to play golf for a living and have no idea what you're good and what you're bad at, and not tailor your practice sessions around that?
Well,
and Puggy Blackman down in South Carolina does the same thing. Puggy's a good friend of mine. I mean, he's actually one of the founders and helped start the AJGA back in the day. And he was a legend. He was a coach at coach at Georgia Tech forever. With Reimer, Billy McDonald, David Duvall, and those guys. So when those guys get to those D1 schools, they're already pretty good. And what you have to sharpen up is their short game and their course management. That's the biggest things you got to work on.
Well, if you look at, arguably probably the best player that ever played, Jack Nicklaus, in a lot of his interviews, if you ever really sort of let it soak in, he talked about he was not, if you were to look at his stats compared to the guys on the PGA Tour today, he certainly didn't have the best short game. He certainly, he was a long ball hitter, but he always wasn't, he certainly wasn't always the most accurate. But his course management abilities were so stellar that he was able to recover and able to get back in the game, if you will, from virtually any situation that he was faced with. And he knew to think several holes ahead. He knew to plan and strategize ahead, if you will. He didn't have the perfect golf swing. I mean, and that day, a lot of people might have thought so. But if you were to analyze him today and compare him to some of the guys out on tour, as I mentioned earlier today, it wouldn't stand up. But it was his ability to be able to think his way around the golf course that made him the champion that he was. He was a great putter, but not a very good wedge player until he worked with Phil Rogers. Yeah, right.
And after he worked with Phil Rogers, his wedge play got a lot better. And it's not as what we see today. It never got that good, but it was a lot better, and it was good enough to win all those events and majors.
Exactly.
Well, and not only that is Jack is the master, and this goes back to the technology thing that Chuck and I talked about earlier. Jack was the master of playing golf, the game of golf, not playing golf swing. And too many players today are focused in on making perfect golf swing, and that's never
right.
No, exactly.
Right.
Guys, I enjoyed the discussion tonight. I'm going to end it on this note. Tom, I'm going to let you go first. Just talk a little bit again about the Vidanta Golf Academies and the resorts. Let everybody know where they can go and get more information on that. And then, Chuck, I'm going to let you update where folks can get in touch with you as well for your facilities.
Okay. Well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on, and it's been a true treat to be on, and I enjoyed spending time with Chuck, that one of my favorite people and one of my mentors that for many, many years. So, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you can find anything you want regarding the Vidanta Golf Academies at tomstickneygolf.com. That's STICKNEY.com, or Vidanta.com, VIDANTA. We're easily found on the web, and if you do come to Mexico, we'd love to have you. If you are in the States, look up Chuck Evans. I know he can't say this, but I can. Look up Chuck Evans. Look up his golf school. Look at Chuck Evans' pedigree within this wonderful game, and you will find one hell of a great instructor. So I'm telling you, if you're serious about your golf game, you need to find Chuck Evans, because if it wasn't for him and it wasn't for the knowledge that he imparted with me with the golf machine, I wouldn't be half the teacher I am today. And I say that whether Chuck's on the line or not. So I can't thank him enough, and I can't thank him for being honest enough to give me his recommendation. So thank you very much, Chuck.
Perfect.
Thank you,
and Chuck?
It's I'm going to tell you one brief little story. The first time Tom and I talked, he was in Memphis, Tennessee, and I saw something that he had posted about the golfing machine, which just wasn't quite right. So I called him, and we had a little talk, and he was quite young at the time, and I think he was a little disturbed that I would call him and tell him, it really works kind of this way. And it wasn't.
I know exactly what you're talking about too.
It wasn't to shut him down or anything. It was to try to help him understand it better. So,
right.
Tom and I have been friends for a long time. He's been trying to get me to come down to Mexico, and I'm not far. I mean, I'm right on the border here in Arizona. So, but everybody can find out anything about me on my website, chuckevansgolf.com. There's a phone number, there's a contact, there's a schedule a lesson button. I mean, everything's right there, so you can do all that by just going to chuckevansgolf.com. And I appreciate Tom's helped me a lot over the years with his acumen as far as his business knowledge and things like that. And I'm still looking, however, T, for that place that gives me a $300,000 retainer. I haven't found it yet, so as soon as you can work that out, let me know, okay?
I think your name has to be Harmon or Foley for that to happen.
Right.
Well.
Yeah, I think we're all looking for that. Gentlemen,
I think we're both in trouble.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
I appreciate being on the show again, Ted, and I always look forward to doing it with you. And anytime you want us individually or together back on, just let us know. I know I'd be more than happy to do it. So. Always interested.
Well, I think we'll have to make that a date and maybe early in the new year get everybody fired up again in early spring. We'll have to do that. Just let me very quickly say this, guys. First off, thank you very much. As I said earlier in the program before you came on, I know how difficult it is sometimes for people to come on the show, especially after a long day's work and teaching and so forth. You're tired and you just want to sort of get settled in for the evening. So I appreciate very much you guys giving of your time and sharing your thoughts and input about the game with my audience. So thank you again for that. And I'm going to be sending out Chuck and Tom. I'm going to throw you in the mix as well if you're interested. A couple things. I'm going to be obviously lining up some shows, obviously, as we get into the new year. But also I'm going to be sending out the Coach's Corner schedule for 2017, and I'd love, Chuck, of course, for you to jump in, as always, on a few if you can. And Tom, I would like to invite you to get in on a panel discussion, and if you want to coordinate and come on the same time, that's fine with me. But I would love to have you guys come back on again, and we'll talk about some other areas that are of interest in golf. But in the meantime, thank you very much, and I'm going to try and make my way down to Mexico too here before too long. It looks like a great facility. I haven't been there myself, but from what I've seen, Tom, it looks like a phenomenal facility, and I'm very envious of you at the moment for what a great setup you have there.
We're very lucky.
Everybody I know wants to be Tom Stickney. So.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to say the last thing I'll say, and I'll let you guys go. Chuck, we've known each other for a long time, and the one thing that Chuck knows more so than probably anybody else is Chuck knew me when I had hair.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was quite the robust head of hair, too.
I don't know what happened. I got skipped in the hair gene pool anyway. Well, thank you so much.
I'm close behind you, Tom, so don't worry about it. Mine's thinning out pretty fast here myself. Guys, again, thank you very much. I mean that sincerely. I appreciate you giving of your time, and as I said, I know it's not always easy in situations, but I appreciate you coming on the show tonight and sharing your thoughts with my audience.
All the best.
Thank you, Ted.
All right, thanks, guys. Okay, that was my very special guests, Tom Stickney and Chuck Evans. A great couple of teacher professionals, and thank you guys for coming on, as I said, and sharing your thoughts with my audience. Again, I apologize very quickly for those of you who maybe tuned in a little bit later in the broadcast. Normally start the show out the first hour with Coach's Corner, and regrettably, both Clint and Anthony had to cancel literally last minute. Actually, I wasn't too sure about Clint there for a while, but ultimately he ended up getting in touch with me throughout the show, and expressing his condolences and apologies for having to not show tonight. But both had very, very good reasons, and certainly no hard feelings. But Clint, I'm definitely going to hold you to your thought that you owe me one, so you will. Believe me, I'll hold you to it. But guys, thank you very much, as always, for tuning into Golf Talk Live, and I appreciate all of your support over the years. And I want to just give a quick shout out to a couple of people and thank them for all of their continued support for this show. As I mentioned earlier, Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide. Go to southcoastgolfguide.com. Jonathan, thank you for all of your continued support. Meredith Kirk, as I mentioned earlier as well, from Meredith Kirk Golf. She's a great LPGA professional out in the Myrtle Beach area. Mr. Bernie Pinder from Ontic Golf, onticgolf.com, a great developer of customized putters at onticgolf.com. Mr. Sean Kelly, owner of linkedgolfers.com, great social media site. And also Nikki and Tiffany Litherland. Nikki is, of course, a golf professional, and his lovely wife, Tiffany. Thank you for all of your continued support on the show as well. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland. Thank you, everybody, again, for tuning in. And I will be back next week with, for sure, Coach's Corner and another great guest. So make sure you tune in to Golf Talk Live next week. Thank you, everybody, and God bless.